It's totally in my head. It's just a hotel lobby. That's all it is, basically, constantly. Is everyone here? Should I turn on the razzle dazzle? I know it's odd to see me here just by myself. It's weird to look at myself. All right, people are here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Frank Frazetta Day for short, or if you are in the know. My name is Paul. I'm going to be your host for like the next 5 minutes because there is something way cooler than looking at my cardigan behind me. We are here today to celebrate the incredible work and legacy of Frank Frazetta. Now, Alex Aronowitz, and I believe Rob as well, super producer Rob from our Sideshow East team, are actually at the Frazetta Museum in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. I think I might have butchered that. If I did, please send all of the hate mail to Joe Lombardo at hatemail.com. Don't send it to me. It's not going to get read. So welcome in, everyone. Again, we are not only celebrating the incredible legacy of Frank Frazetta, but we are also celebrating what would have been his 94th birthday. 94 years young for Frank. Alex, again, is going to be there. He is boots on the ground at the museum, ready to show you guys inside of that incredible museum. We've got some footage and stuff later that we're going to show you. But let's go over the schedule. I think we've got super producer Mike is here with us. Mike, can we bring up the schedule for today and what everyone can see? So we had a giveaway go up live at 6 a.m., another one at 7 a.m., another one at 8. And of course, right now you are watching the Frazetta Museum tour where Alex Aronowitz will be interviewing, doing a sort of walk and talk with Frank Frazetta Jr. and Lori Frazetta, who are two keepers of the incredible museum out there in Pennsylvania. And again, at 3 p.m., I am back with Jesse Don Cohen for Trivial Cahoots. Come show off how much of a huge Frazetta fan you are. Again, pull up in your badass black van that's got like Frazetta art on the side. Everyone, roll deep. And then, of course, at 5, we have finally, due to popular demand, brought back Ink Tank, where we have Alex Aronowitz, who's going to be hauling ass back from the museum, back to his home, and interviewing 3 incredible artists and what it means to them, to be celebrating this during Frank Frazetta Day. So of course, we've got giveaways, rewards, and group exclusive side.show/geek group. We're really close to 50,000 people there. Okay, I think everyone's tired of looking at me now, I would assume. I am. Boy, howdy. So, Mike, let's bring up the museum side now. Let's touch base with Alex Aronowitz and see if they are ready there down at the museum. And then I will go away, and then you guys are in for such an incredible treat. All right, we see them there.
Everybody, welcome. It is Frank Frazetta Day. We are celebrating Frank Frazetta, world famous fantasy artist, 94th birthday. And here we are at the world famous Frazetta Art Museum, where we are going to be going into his art, his life. We have a little bit of insights, a little bit of trivia. So we're joined by Lori and Frank Frazetta Jr. Come on. Hello, Lori.
Hi.
Hello, Frank.
Hello,
How are you? Look at this. I mean, this is royalty. I'm in art royalty right now. So
welcome to the Frazetta Art Museum. Glad to have you all here.
Yeah,
Thanks for tuning in.
And we're going to have like an awesome, a bridge tour, because if you want to see the full thing, you've got to come down in person. You got to come down in person. We're here in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Beautiful on this Frank Frazetta estate.
Yeah.
It is beautiful country out here. You got to come see it. So
since 1971, we purchased this estate.
1971.
It was an old farm, and Dad and I worked countless hours for 15 years to make it look like it does now.
And it's beautiful. They're building an apartment for me, so I can go in and see it all the time. So
and that also brings up, I want to thank Rob and Alex for coming out and spending this day with us for my dad's birthday and keeping the spirit. And he's a big supporter of my dad's museum, and I just wanted to say it's $15.
Oh, 15? I have the exact change.
Yeah,
Exact change.
I'm going to give that to the boss.
Give it to the boss. There you go. No, you got the boss. So we're going to talk about not only Frank's art and the impact it's had on the entire industry, but we'll also talk about Frank himself. So, I mean, I know this because we've had conversations, but most people would think that art was his first priority. was that, it was art his first priority? That's the big question.
His family was his biggest masterpiece. Frank Jr. remembers a story. Go ahead, tell the story about Silver Warrior.
That's not as important,
Yeah.
but my dad had a few priorities in life. First was family. That's it. Art, he was not a prisoner to his art. That's about fourth. Baseball was second by far. He was drafted to play professional baseball. But I'm not going to say the team because it's part of the trivia question. Third and fourth, big separation between two would be cameras and the art. And the art was a way to make a living, and that's about the extent of it.
And what a living he made. I mean, so these are family portraits that he painted.
Correct.
And this is amazing because, again, it shows that he used his art and his tool, his powerful thing, and he captured what was most important to him, which was the family.
And regardless of the genre, he could capture anything at any moment. He didn't need any research or time to search into a book. Well, what's his line look like? What? He just pulled it out of his memory. That was one of his God-given gifts. He always said that.
Yeah. To be able to just pull it out of his mind.
Absolutely.
So it starts with the portrait wall. This had never been in a museum before. This was in their home, which is right here, feet away from the museum, in their private collection. This was Ellie's mother, her father, Frank and Ellie. Frank's mother, Frank Jr., his brother Billy, and this is a portrait of Ellie. And you have to know that if you knew these people, Frank didn't just capture the look, he captured the essence of the person. When you look at these, these were who these people were.
Yeah, and you could see so much of the personality on the faces, the smiles, the little hand, like just the little posing of the hand. It's all important to capture who the person is. And
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. And then down here.
And this is this art was given to my father by probably his best friend, Roy Franklin, another wonderful artist. My dad met him, I believe, in the early 50s, and he was like a stepdad to us. My dad would go over to his house, and they'd work and collaborate on the same painting for Creepy and Eerie. Roy was a genius at the structural part of the artwork, and he has a lot. He should get a lot of credit for my dad's career. But he gave my dad a little boot in the butt because my dad was playing ball all day, and he's like, Frank, don't waste this talent, get to work.
Right.
So he taught my dad a lot about and introduced him to a lot of classical artists,
Right.
classical music, Stravinsky.
Oh, yes, Stravinsky.
You know, back in the 60s,
Stravinsky,
right?
remember things.
In the 60s, when we went to bed, we just tots. His art was done at night when we were sleeping, and that's when he put on the classical music. Put on the pot of coffee, and that was it. 24 hours later, 12 hours later, 6 hours later, we'd get up in the morning, go to school, and there it was on the kitchen table.
Where did you eat? It was on all the art was on the kitchen table.
Now, he moved the art for us, he put it on the floor, he put it in the oven.
I was gonna say that's literally putting food on the table, right? When you put the art.
Ellie would always be yelling, Frank, you got your art in your painting in my oven again, because he did them overnight, fast drying. Turn the oven on, turn it off, stick it in the oven.
Right, the house would stink for days from the wall turpentine.
Oh,
I used to walk in Dad's studio, and it would be like fumigation time, like we got termites or something. He said, Dad, open the window. He goes, what's the matter? I said, it reeks in here, turpentine and oil paints. He goes, I don't smell anything. I said, I know that. I said, open the door. Yeah, I would open the door for him.
that's what happens when you're in it for so long. You're like, ugh. And he's like, who's talking to me? There's 12 of you. Oh, that's just a turpentine.
And you could walk into that studio. It doesn't matter if the painting was due that next morning. How many times I walked in there and said, oh, I didn't know you were busy. He goes, what's up? I said, we're going to play stickball outside.
Yeah.
Right out here, wait, stickball court. He goes, okay, let me clean my brush. I'll be right out. I said, what about your painting? He goes, I'll be there when I get back. And that's the way it was.
Family first.
If he had an opportunity to get away from it, he'd jump at the chance to, because he said, this was my job. This was like anybody else going to their 9-to-5 job. This is what I had to do to get it done, to feed you guys and put a roof over our head. And that's the end of it.
And it's amazing because I mean it's not like you think that if someone was that put that low of a priority on it would do not such an amazing job. But as we continue on through some of the family pictures, I mean some of these are from his youngest ages that he started out. So I mean
He was 3 years
Super
old
producer
when
Rob
he
is
did
here, by the
this piece of art, and his grandmother gave him those 2 pennies for that piece of art. And at that time, you could get penny candy. So that's what motivated Frank into continuing practicing and perfecting his art, because he loved penny candy. This he did when he was 8 years old, this oil. He was born with 2 Z's and 2 T's.
I was about to bring that up. There's
Uh-huh.
2 Z's on here, but we know
Yeah.
Frank only having the 1 in his name.
He didn't like the way when you cursive write, he didn't like the way the double Z and double T looked. So when he was 14, he changed his name to 1 Z, 2 T's.
How many people remember cursive out there? Anyone? Does anyone know what that means?
They don't teach it anymore.
And I asked him quite a few times, I said, when did you take the Z out? And he said, I don't remember. But I figured out when he did it. When he had his first work published, The Snowman, I noticed down here there's a Z removed from one of his prelims for the comic book.
And this is when was this
Tally ho,
published?
that was in 1944.
19.
It was copyrighted when he was 11 years old.
11 years old.
Yeah, so
his
he was a
first comic.
professional-
First
He was a
publication.
professional comic artist at the age 13.
That is something else.
Yeah.
Now look, here we go. This is some of the art that he produced. This is
Yeah, this
amazing.
was First published
And it's graded, which is even better.
Correct.
And you have to, so look at this one, you could see that this was Frank's masterpiece, his children and grandchildren. That was his masterpiece. People will ask me if I ever saw him paint. I never did in all the 40 years that I've known him, because as soon as I'd run in with the kids, he would roll right around on the floor, stop doing whatever he was doing, and just roll around on the floor with them.
And this is one of his early homemade comic books. He had hundreds of these things. He, like I said, baseball was his real love at that age.
And all motivated by baseball and candy, right?
Absolutely. And they were 8 pages, 12 pages, or whatever it was. And he told me that his sisters would steal them when he went out to play, and they would swap them with kids on the block's real comic books. For
Right.
us. So who knows what comic books they swapped for him.
Oh my
But we
goodness.
still have another book that's never been published of about 10 snowman stories and Little Red Devil that have never been published, and one day we'd like to get those out and share that.
That would be beautiful. And so since we're talking about his comics, on the other side of this wall is his beginning of his comic career. So let's check this out here.
Now, most people who know my dad know him for the oil paintings and the fantasy, horror, but this is who my father was for nearly 38 years of his life before he ever picked up a paintbrush to do something for a paperback cover.
And look at this one down here. This, I think,
That's Thunder. That was
Just
his one and
think
only,
about this.
Right, his one and only comic book that he did the cover and in the interior,
cover
front to back.
to cover, front to back,
Yeah,
Frank
we did.
Frazetta Art.
Yeah.
That's an interesting trivia tidbit.
There you go.
I'm making people do homework now. So continue. Yeah, sorry.
So what I tell people when they come to visit with us, that when you're walking around the perimeters, the oils, there's 2 things that you really have to keep in mind. First thing is that Frank was every male character in his images. The women were his wife, Ellie. The second thing is most of these oils Frank did overnight. In this particular case, we don't have this original, but this piece is called Neanderthals. So Frank was given 3 to 4 months to doing the cover of Creepy. He waited till Sunday night was due on a Monday morning. He put his kids to bed, his coffee on, his music on. He went to paint. He had no canvas left. In a panic, he was rummaging through the house trying to find anything to paint on. Out of desperation, he cut the wooden floorboards. Underneath that is your subfloor, which is Masonite. Cut a chunk of that out of the floor, and that's what he ended up painting on. If you look, there's very little paint on that piece. He actually used that Masonite as part of the art. I think he said it took him 5.5 hours to do that piece. After that, he got so much attention for that piece that he did more Masonite pieces. So, I'll bring you over to the Masonite pieces to show examples. This one is completely raw Masonite. Raw Masonite.
That was done in 5.5 hours.
5.5 hours. And this is what I love about it, is that, you say his priority was family first and baseball and cameras. So, like, he's like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my children. I'm going to go put them to bed. I'm going to do this. Oh, I might as well get this done. And then he literally just used whatever he could find. And that's a passion for art that is
It
incredible.
was desperation.
And, like,
Out of desperation leads great invention.
that's what I meant, like a passion for family that led to the desperation just to get the job done.
The artists were allotted 30 days to do a painting. And my dad looked at it as, whether it takes me a day or 30 days, I'm getting paid the same. So he took full advantage of that and did it in one day.
Let me try that on my bosses. Let me see if that works. So this is actually, by the way, next to this Mason, I think this painting, this is Red Planet.
Red Planet.
We do have this one up. This is probably one of my favorite paintings of his. Absolutely
The colors,
the
just
colors on
really
this just
pull you
pop out.
in.
Yeah,
Yep.
the greens and then the backgrounds and these, the aliens shooting off the planet. But also I want to, I'm doing a little bit of promo because we do have a contest going on over at side.show/Hall of Frame for this is the
Princess and the Panther.
and the Panther. Now tell me a little bit about this piece because we have this up for sale, but we also have, like I said, that giveaway going. Ooh, the camera thing.
This was used on the cover of Heavy Metal. And you can see there's a picture of Frank holding the original piece, how proud he was holding it.
Yeah.
But this piece is so different for me because she's blonde.
Right.
Most of what I'm familiar with are the dark hair
The dark haired
women.
Yeah.
Yep, but she's blonde.
And that is a beautiful piece. Don't
Beautiful
forget,
piece.
Enter for a chance to win that.
Absolutely.
And then my other, and it's amazing that these two Masonite pieces are two of my favorite pieces that he's made. So please tell us about them.
Frank Jr.'s favorite as well.
Definitely.
This,
good taste.
I have to say, I think Frank knew exactly how he was going to do this painting before he even put paint on the piece, because Masonite's porous. If you spill water on it, you get a water stain. You can't fix it, go over it. So he had to see that image before he even put paint on that piece, because you can't change it, you can't fix it, go over it. So he had to see that before he even put paint on the piece.
Now that piece, well, he was teaching me, he gave me some art lessons at the time, and he told me what artists make the mistake in their paintings is they define every area of the painting, whether it be the skulls at the bottom or the carnage down here, the bones. They make everything look photographic. And by doing that, it takes away from the focal point, was what my dad did in all his paintings. Now this one he told me, now what makes this one great is sometimes less is more. He said, now every viewer who comes and stares at that has their own take on what it might be. Bigfoot, or a human leg, or a horror leg, whatever. And that's what makes me come back every time and say the same thing. Wow, I wonder what it really looks like. He said if he would have revealed the face or a profile, everybody would have saw it and said, wow, that's really cool, initially. But then the next time they came back to the painting, that mystery would be gone.
Right.
And it wouldn't be that wow bang again. So initially it might have been a little bit more overwhelming to the person, but in the long run it would be mysterious. It makes it so much more special.
And I do think that's great when you add a little bit of mystery to an art, because something that's great as a collector or someone who appreciates art is interpretation. And I think that's what I love.
I copied that one 50 times, and they look good. They almost look the same from 10 feet away, and when you get close, the subtleties and the beautiful tones and colors in here. It's like you can't imagine.
You can't see only in person the greens in it. Like you wouldn't imagine there'd be greens in those grounds.
Right, you'd have to come out to see this in person. To
That's-
really
You have to
appreciate
come out.
this.
That's one of the things that we wanted to. That's one of the points of this is also not just like we're celebrating Frank's birthday, but people need to see this museum in person, because seeing this stuff, a photograph of it, a video of it is one thing.
Yeah.
Getting it in person, even owning like a lithograph or anything like that, you have to see some of these in person. Some of these, they're no lithographs. You have to come see these, because this whole museum is an experience.
Yeah, the lithographs are great because they're a 12-color process.
Right.
Pigments. Where a regular magazine and posters are 4-color,
Right.
basic blue, red, yellow, and green, and black. So that doesn't capture the hundreds and hundreds of colors my dad mixes to get these. If this was on a Pantone scale or whatever,
Right.
she would blow up.
That's why I can't wait to show off some of that later.
Yeah,
We're
it's incredible.
going to come to that a little bit later.
And just quickly, this was my dad's favorite Conan painting, probably his second favorite painting. This was his masterpiece, though it's not popular among the fan base as much, because they love the original Barbarian, they love
Right.
the snow giants, but this one here, how he had the light capturing the main subject matter.
Right.
And he forces you to pull away from what he wants you to look at.
Right.
Down here is carnage and undefined and just suggestive art. And by doing that, you keep wanting to go back. And it makes it so much more powerful and dynamic.
It's a massive.
And it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
My dad was teaching me, he said it takes such discipline to stop and not try to make it better, because human nature is to try to make things better. And so when you walk away from it, it's unfinished. However, that makes that part much better.
Right, because exactly like his masterful use of the light and detail. Instead of putting detail on everything, he put detail just on what he thought was the most important part, which I think is intense, but not as awesome as everything. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just want to talk about pop culture, because if anyone knows Frank Frazetta, the impact on just pop culture in general is amazing. So, Laura, if you want to take us through some of the art here, especially these Molly Hatchet pieces, because I mean, any rock and roll fan knows these Molly Hatchet covers.
So this wall we call our memorabilia wall, correct, the Molly Hatchet album covers. What this did was, at the time, it pushed Frank's art out into the mass for everybody to stand up and recognize him as an artist and say, who drew this? So those were very important at the time. We also have some sketches that were done for the movie Fire and Ice. We usually play that on the back TV so people can kind of, if they're not familiar with it, they can kind of see it and know what it's about. He also did these statues. And he did these as a bust. He did these as a 3D value to the character, so the other artists would get to understand how that character would be in a 3D value. This is the first and only time that Frank sculpted, but again, he could do any genre in any media and did it as if it was his expertise.
And as a fan of Ralph Bakshi films, I mean, seeing Fire and Ice and then seeing these pieces is really intense for me, you know, because it brings me back to when I first saw these movies.
Right, absolutely.
And you can't get that feeling until you, like when I see this in person.
And you mentioned about Frank without his shirt on.
Hey.
The reason that is because the actors weren't doing the stunts well. So he took his shirt off and he's showing everybody, he's running around, jumping around things. He was showing them how to do the scenes.
How to die, how to fall.
Right.
The guys would get hit with a spear, the Neanderthals.
Right.
And the guy would fall over like he was hit with a shotgun. And they goes, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Like, what? He goes, it's a spear.
Right.
You don't fly backwards off your feet. You're going to suffer.
So
My
we
dad
have.
had to do it for him.
So we have paint, we have pencils, we have painting, we have drawing, and we have acting coach.
And athleticism.
Athletic
That's-
and acting coach.
There you go.
And sculptor.
I remember I asked him, I said, boy, we should do a Death Dealer movie. We get Spielberg to do the film. He's the best. And he goes, he's not the best. I said, well, who's the best? He goes, I'm the best.
Yeah. He would have
Two
added.
times my dad ever said anything like that.
He would have added himself to the
Yeah,
thing.
because he was very humble.
So let's talk about, and now this is so much fun, this little thing right here.
We found this book on the bookshelf in the house, and when we opened it up, this paper fell out of it, signed by Dwight D. Eisenhower, thanking Frank for doing the cover of his cartoon book. We didn't know he had done that, because again, he was a humble kind of guy. He didn't brag, boast, he didn't talk about it, so we thought that was such a cool thing.
Yeah, so they invited him to the White House. He told me that the vice president called him. That's back in like in 1955. And he said, we want to thank you for this wonderful, caricature of the president. And he'd like to give you an award in person if you want to come down Sunday. And he was invited down, and he never showed up.
That is so cool.
That was one of my-
Presidents never call me, you know? But I'm so good at what I do, which is, I don't know. And now, of course, we cannot talk, I mean, we have to bring it back to Conan. Conan, the Sumerian, the Barbarian.
We have this for reference to show that this paperback went in the record books as selling the most ever of a single paperback book. Arnold Schwarzenegger got his whole career start because of that image. It became so iconic that when they were making the Conan movies, they were trying to find someone who they thought looked much like that image. And they thought Arnold did. But it's so funny, if you look,
Getting
Frank's
close
face,
here.
the thin lips and the dimple in the chin, Frank was Conan. It was Frank as Conan the Barbarian.
And this is something that we're going to see like a lot repeated. A theme during this tour is Frank putting himself into the paintings.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's such an amazing thing. Because I mean, what a better reference than yourself, right?
Absolutely.
But that's because his comic career was based on, they couldn't hire models, they had the money, to make any money to do the characters and get these facial expressions. So they looked in a mirror when they had to make a face of horror or happiness or whatever it might be. They used their own self as the character, same with Al Williamson and other artists.
And I've seen live artists do that with their hands, but I've never seen the amount of times that you showed me.
His
Because
face.
you know, spoiler alert, I got to see all this already. I'm
He got
cheating.
the full tour.
I got the full
He
tour.
paid admission.
I'm cheating on trivia later because I got the full tour. But just seeing his face in so many pieces of art. But now I want to talk about some of the famous people that have visited here.
And once they
This is
break
so
the
cool.
transition
Transition from this to this?
transition from comic art to oil paintings was very simple for him.
Right.
Because he had basically 30 years of training to draw. So we had all that covered, all the extreme fighting positions, running, throwing, to capture it in a comic strip. So all he had to do here was color it. He knew where everything was, and he was a master of colors, obviously. So, I mean, you can just see it. I mean, he did it overnight.
Wow.
That's how he started with Edgar Rice Burroughs, his first
Right.
opportunity.
Tarzan.
And to show you how such a great friend Rory Prinkle was, Rory went into the office. My dad was out of work for 2 years.
Right.
And he said, why don't you give Frazetta a shot? He's hungry. And they go, well, he's been doing comic art for years. Do you think he's up to it? And Roy goes, did you like the last painting I did for you? I said, yeah, that was great. He goes, Frank did it. And that opened the door for
Snuck
my
it in.
dad.
He snuck it in. That's a good friend.
And that's a great
Very good
friend.
friend.
Yeah.
Got him in. That was the start of my dad's career right there.
That's so cool.
I don't think
Prinkle.
people knew that.
Shout out to Franklin. That's amazing. Yeah, now if you, Rob, you want to get over here, super producer Rob, check out all of this Clint Eastwood. Look at this. So this
Right
is-
outside on the driveway. Here's Frank Jr. here with his friends, right outside on the driveway. But not only Clint Eastwood. Frank said that he was more nervous. They were more nervous meeting him than he was meeting them. He said they were shaking. They're like so nervous trying to meet him.
Clint Eastwood, we had a phone call. My sister Holly answered the phone. I was sitting with my dad, as I did every day. And she goes, Dad, Clint Eastwood's on the phone. And at that time, no celebrities reached out. This was the 70s.
Right.
And he thought his friend Nick Megman from Mad Magazine used to play pranks on him.
Right.
So he goes, yeah, tell him I'm busy. Tell him to call back later. Hung up the phone. A week later, Dad, Clint Eastwood's on the phone. Yeah, I told you I was busy. I didn't get done what I had to do. They took the phone. A week later, Dad, Clint Eastwood's on the phone. It's really, really important. You got to pick up the phone. My dad goes, all right, I'll be right there. And my dad made him wait a half hour. It was Nick.
Clint Eastwood.
Then he went over to the phone,
my
picked it up,
goodness.
said, hi, Nick, and it was Clint, and they hit it off right from there. And
That's
Clint
so
said
cool.
he was so scared to come out here. He said, no social media, you really get to see who the artist was.
Right.
But based on what my dad created, he said, I thought your dad was going to come out of the house with a black cape. He goes,
Battle axe.
dreadlocks in his hair and a bun out of his nose like a witch doctor. Because I was scared to death and so pleased when I met him.
That's so
And they
funny.
were like, they were cloned together. They should have been clones. They were the same person. Their mannerisms, their way of life. It wasn't about, oh, look at me.
Right.
Clint Eastwood was supposed to go out and have lunch with his friend that he brought along, and he chose to stay with me and my friends and fish and hang outside for 2 hours. That's just the way he was. He slept over, and he woke up in the morning. I woke in the kitchen. He got a parakeet in his hand. That's just who he was.
He just took the
family
parakeet with
parakeet.
him. So here's another familiar face.
Who's that, Larry?
I don't know.
George Lucas.
George Lucas.
With Ellie in the house, and there he is with Frank on the driveway. George Lucas said there'd be no Star Wars if it wasn't for Frank's inspiration. He said his Darth Vader is his inspiration from the Death Dealer,
Which is so cool, and I can't wait till we get to show some more of the
which
Death
we
Dealer
will,
stuff.
yeah. And also Sylvester Stallone. There he is with Ellie in the house. He's giving Ellie a kiss, and there he is with Frank. When he did the painting for the cover of the Mad magazine, which is this one here,
Yeah, Judge.
Judge Dredd.
That is so cool. And
Bo Derek was also here. Here's Bo Derek and John Derek. Now here's just a real quick little funny thing. But so this was a movie poster supposed to be used for a movie starring Anthony Quinn and Bo Derek called Ghosts Don't Do It. They ended up not using this for the movie poster. But afterwards, Bo Derek, she had married a producer, John Derek, who was kind of like a little strong personality. They always teased her in Hollywood and said that he held puppet strings over her because she was shy and sweet. She asked Frank to do letterhead for her because back then, of course, we had to write letters. She wanted to show through her letterhead, no, I hold the puppet strings over John, which I think is hysterical. She didn't have to say a word. She showed everyone who held the puppet strings.
That's so cool. Good. She should. Some girl power.
That's right.
So this, by the way, which we do have for sale, is the Mothman print, which is absolutely beautiful. The use of color is astounding. But I wanted to say, before we get to that really cool piece of trivia you have about it, look at this, another instance where Frank drew himself into the actual painting. So you're going to see, it's almost like little Easter eggs you can find around the museum, like find Frank in the drawing.
Yeah.
What's the cool thing about this? Because this is not an original. Why?
This is a canvas piece of art we sell on our master reproduction canvas site. George Lucas owns this piece.
Owns the original.
Yep,
He's got the original all to
Yep.
himself.
yep.
So that is,
George Lucas is a huge fan. He owns quite a few originals.
look at this piece. And again, we have this piece available, but
It's
just
beautiful. It turned out beautiful.
seeing it in person versus the photograph, by the way, and it's so intense how bright these colors are in person.
It is, and he didn't use those sort of colors
Right.
often, so I think that's what makes it more unique.
Right. It's like
And
out
that
of this
was used
world.
on the cover of High Times.
How cool is
Also on the book from John Keel. He was one of the first sightings of the Mothman, and he wrote a book, and they also used that for the cover of that book.
Right,
And
so-
here, there's an article. The Army had come to Frank years ago and asked if they could use the death dealer on the horse as their mascot. He agreed. So outside of Fort Hood, Texas, stands a life-size bronze of the death dealer. There's one outside as well as one inside. They actually would take apart one wherever they're deployed. They take it with them and set it up. There's one in Afghanistan and Iraq right now. But they don't call it death dealer. They call it Phantom Warrior because they don't want to say death.
Yeah, little the implication.
Yeah.
So
You know
now-
what it is.
This is another beautiful piece that we do carry, but this piece right here, the Egyptian Queen.
Egyptian Queen. This is a lithograph. This piece, and now most people wouldn't know this, but I was told this actually, because Ellie, as much as Frank was in his art, this is Ellie when she was pregnant with her last child, her fourth child. You can see now a pregnant woman's belly. Most people wouldn't know that because Frank drew women voluptuous. But now that you know the story, you can see a pregnant woman's belly. But this is just amazing.
It's such an intense piece of art. I
It
love how
really is.
you have the person in the background that you could still see them, but they're just sort of shaded. The cat, of course, we had spoken when we talked that Frank loved drawing cats, right?
And so I have younger children that come to the museum and I play a game. I say, count how many cats are in his art, and there's a lot. It keeps them busy for a while. But even the marble pillar, like that marble just looks real.
Right.
And the pop of color in. Now, George Lucas told the costume designer, when the designer was creating costumes for Princess Leia, study Frazetta. So this is what they referenced for Princess Leia's costume.
Right. And that's so. And again, this was like we had with that Conan piece, the light drawing your eyes right to the subject that you wanted to see. The other outer areas were dark. Such a beautiful piece.
And George Lucas owns that.
Well, little birdie told us maybe,
Maybe.
because he's opening a museum. So
It's a birdie.
Was it the parakeet that?
little
was
birdie,
it the
which
famous
would make
parakeet?
sense because it is a meaningful piece.
Right.
So it would make sense for him to own that.
I'm wrong. There's one more thing. This is Kirk Hammett from Metallica.
Oh, of course. Metallica, clearly.
They're pretty well known, I think, aren't they?
They're like this cool indie band that people have heard of.
Yeah,
You
he
know?
came out here. He's good friends with our neighbor, Kevin Clement.
Yeah.
And he had a small collection of horror. And he came out here in 2009 and purchased the Berserker. Conan Berserker.
yeah.
That was the first painting my dad sold. for
And that was the
$1
first amount, right? $1 million. That was the highest amount ever
Yeah.
that he had gotten.
Just a quick tribute to his mom and dad. You got to thank them. My dad would be
Absolutely.
here.
You have to thank all generations.
Yeah, he took after his mom 100% except his dad. He got his dad's green eyes. That's when they got married. Dad with one of his used cars and dad with another one of his used cars. He was against buying new cars.
Sounds like my parents too. They're also against buying new cars.
Yeah.
You know, when I bought my new car, there was all of my growth. So here is
Princess and the Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty
I almost
and
said.
the Beast.
I almost said.
But
There's a
I
lot
saw
of
you go,
princesses.
and I was like, Beauty and the Beast. I love this piece because this is a good example of showing how Frank got you to see what you wanted to see, what he wanted you to see. There's detail in the places he wanted your eyes to go to. If you look at the water. They're just like little blobs of white. Really, he could have drawn the water to make it look more real, but he didn't want your eyes to go there. So his focus point was up into this area here. Yes, and this one,
We
That
do.
was the
This is
last
where
painting he did. with his right hand before.
This was his last
painting.
last right-handed painting, this is one of the ones we just put up for pre-order.
Correct.
Recently.
Yes. Yep.
This,
And it turned out beautiful.
this Conan is something else.
It really
I had a
is.
headache thinking about this poor troll. This poor guy.
Most people don't know this exists because this was never part of the Conan series.
Right.
This was a piece that he had done for one of the Conan series, and it went missing. Nobody knows to this day where it went. But he liked it so much that that's where this one came from, because if you look, the stance is exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, the hair.
Yep, but it's Frank. That's Frank. If he made a face like that, I can see,
running,
that's Frank. That's Frank's face. Yeah, so I think he just liked that painting, and since it went missing, he did this piece, but most people don't even know that exists.
I gotta say that reminds me of when my dad would make that face. I would go
Get out
running.
of the way.
I would go running. Now this is a beautiful piece because, and by the way, we're doing a giveaway of this one.
The mammoth.
The mammoth. I mean, the power as this animal is crashing through this brush at this poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy.
Well, I mean, listen.
He's got a spear.
I know what's going to happen in the end to the poor mammoth, but right now, I mean, I'm having a panic attack thinking about this thing coming at me. But you were telling me something interesting about this with his use of varnish, which again you can't really see until you come see it in person.
Correct.
Now, my dad always told me he tried to make the unbelievable believable in his artwork.
Right.
As crazy as some of them are, and say, oh, come on, that doesn't make any sense, but you believe it. I mean, now if a guy just sees a mammoth running towards him in an open field, and he's got a spear, it makes no sense. However, my dad gives him a little bit of an edge by jamming him between some trees.
Right.
So it's like he's wedged, like he's kind of not going to come forward anymore. So he just goes forward and does his thing. My dad captures it at the most dynamic moment to where each viewer can take it to the next step like a moving picture.
And that's again what we talked about earlier, which is part of the art is adding your own interpretation to what you see. Because
scenarios.
you get one scene and the rest of the story is yours.
Correct.
And that's what this is
And
beautiful.
that's one of the few blonde-haired guys who ever did to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, because again,
Yeah.
he usually does his dark
Yeah,
hair
because
girls.
in my life, you put dark hair on and look at it doing the painting.
Right,
It would destroy it.
right. It would distract you. It would be another piece that like kind of just blended in.
Like an ink spot.
Right.
Just wouldn't work, and he knew that.
But his use of varnish, he would put varnish in the places where he would want to give more dimension, and it actually made it a three-dimensional viewing.
Which you have to see in person.
You
Again, I can't stress this enough to everyone out there. Like, I've been here, this is my second time here, and I'm enjoying it as much the second time as I did the first time. These paintings here are very interesting because this is something that he had to do. This is like a new thing that he had to do.
Left-handed. Frank had strokes, and it took his whole right side. He held his right hand close and Gimp and walked with a limp. Frank was right-handed. For an artist, it was a devastating blow. He went through a major depression, and finally the doctor said, Frank, art doesn't come from your limbs, it comes from your mind. Find a way to get it out. So Frank ended up teaching himself left-handed painting. So this is one of the left-handed paintings. The first one. Another left-handed painting. And the last one is back here.
This is actually really beautiful.
This is called Death Dealer number 7. Death Dealer is a character. There's 7 different images. This is the 7th. This one is not finished, nor is it signed, because this was Frank's last piece. He was working on it before he passed away.
In total, there was 4 left-handed paintings finished.
Right.
The third one was done for Triple H for the WWE Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
It was called the Skull King. It was for a character he wanted to do.
Wow, now I need to go online and research that now. Maybe I'll give Triple H a little ring and you can give me a deal. I don't know. I doubt it. Well, now I want to talk about this setup that you have here, which is this is really beautiful because it's almost it's a tribute that, and obviously you can't walk in here because this is not meant to be interactive.
Another
This is-
$15.
Another 15. Hold on. You see, I got it here. $15. I'm getting in. So
We
now
wanted
go
to
over this. This is beautiful.
We wanted to set up a personal section of Frank just to show a little bit of the man behind the art. This is his palette, his easel that he used for most of his paintings
Yeah.
from the 70s on, 60s and 70s on, as well as his little Mickey Mouse paint set over there, and a few of his, like his
This
cameras,
is critical.
the palette. Go ahead, Frank, you tell him about the
break down the
palette.
palette.
Well, this is one of the 2 palettes he had in his lifetime. I believe this was the first one, and he had a round one later. So there was about a year duration that my dad was giving me art lessons. So I came over one day after all the pencil studies, and he said, okay, let's do some painting. So he pulls this palette out. He goes, okay, grab some green and blue and we'll start the background. And I'm looking like this, like, where's it at, Pop? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, what the hell am I looking at? I said, white? Blue, what is this? He goes, you don't see all those beautiful colors? I said, no, I'm going to get my palette. So I went home, came back with 6 ketchup bottles with 6 primary colors. And he's staring at me, and I go like this, and I squirt all the colors out. He goes, what the hell is that? How are you going to paint with that? I said, how the hell are you going to paint with that? I said, I'll use mine, you use yours. And that's how we went forward from there. But this is priceless. This is, the market where it's a home run, you take the ball. I think the bat's more important.
Right.
This is where everything stems from. This is the beginning of that.
Right, because, again, to me and you, this is like chaos. But to him, this is order.
Yeah, his friends told me he saw colors that nobody could see.
Right.
And this in here is a combination of, I'm going to say, maybe a few thousand different colors.
Yeah.
And these are the base colors for the skin tones. He told me a male has 400 to 600 colors in the skin on the average painting, and a woman 200 to 400. And that's what this is. This is oil paint. It's transparent. When you do a painting and you use 50 colors, because you can see through them, all those colors come forward. It just blows your mind. Where acrylic, being a plastic base, the last color you put on is the last color you see.
Right.
So if anybody out there wants to paint and you want to get into skin tones and things like that, I recommend oils, whether it be water-based or turpentine.
Take a screenshot of that because that's what your palette's going to look like, and see if you can hear it. Can't touch it. Can't touch it.
And
But
being born the years of the Depression, Frank was very frugal. So I'm telling you, he could get paint out of that palette today. He'd work it until he could get paint out of that today.
Very
He
frugal.
would not waste. He
This
would
is
not
one of his
waste.
original brushes, and now they sell those sleeves you put on your thing to pick it up.
Take
He
that
did
home,
this
put that
back
in
in
my
the 50s and 60s, way ahead of his time. It was a sable pair. We used to go to Manhattan once a year to try to find these. Nobody had them.
So you
My
just
dad's
like,
like, I got to use this crap they make today, the synthetic hairs and the junk.
Yeah.
We just love
you
these.
just kept reusing what he
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
Well, now I want to talk about. Everyone knows Death Dealer. If you don't know Death Dealer, you're living under a rock. No, don't be.
You don't know Frank.
You don't know Frank. No, but if you don't know Death Dealer, because Death Dealer is such an iconic piece, and we have a few Death Dealer pieces here. Starting with this is Death Dealer 1.
Correct.
Right, Death Dealer 1, which, we do carry this. This is beautiful, and it is one of the most,
Iconic pieces.
iconic pieces. We had
Yeah.
comic books, we had comic books, we had paintings and covers for books, whole lot of situation for Death Dealer 1. I even remember Glenn Danzig, this was one of his favorite Frank Frazetta paintings.
Yep.
And look at this. Can
Yes.
I take this home? I want to take this home.
How about this?
Yeah, I know this
Yeah,
statue.
this is
Look at this.
incredible.
Look at this statue. But again, these two Death Dealer paintings have a beautiful story that you told me, and please share that with us. This is Death Dealer 3.
And revised. So this is called Death Dealer 3. The one above it is called Death Dealer 3 Revised. And the reason for that being is that Frank had thyroid disease at the time that he painted this. The doctors couldn't pick up what was wrong with him. He was losing so much weight, becoming so frail, so weak. He was actually dying. Frank Jr. said he was about three hours away from death. They came in, gave him his last rites. If you really look at, and remember I said Frank was every male character in his images? This was Frank at the time with thyroid disease. If you look, see how he's really thin and frail? Look how his head's tilted down in defeat. Look at how the background's kind of quiet. If you look at the eyes, I see a sadness in the eyes.
The character's depleted.
Right. He's
spent.
You see how his eyes are turned, almost, even though they're red, you can tell that there's emotion
Sad.
being turned
He's
down.
sad.
And that's a reproduction.
Right.
She'll tell you why.
Yeah.
At the last minute, they found out what was wrong with him, put him on medication. he painted over it to this, which is called Death Deal 3 Revised. This image is now under this piece. He painted over it. To me, this was Frank saying, I'm back. I am strong and I'm back and ready for more.
And the red in the blood
Powerful.
is redder, almost like more life.
So much more power.
Blood gives us life, and there's so much more power in everything. All the reds are brighter, all the oranges are brighter, everything in this painting.
The helmet is wider, the eyes are looking at you now
Arms are
in a
jacked
menacing way. Yep.
So this is Frank, like you said, returned.
Correct.
This was him. This was the original one was him depleted, and the new one is his rise. I mean, I'm getting really emotional because it's an emotional story.
It is an emotional story. People, when we love this as a print, we sell this all the time. Statue, we made it into a statue. It's a great piece. But once you know the story, it is an emotional story, and you can see the reason why.
And one of the larger paintings he did at the time.
Right. And this is, by the way, this is not the only painting that we have where he's painted over an original, but we'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to let you know that in the comments, because we've been so busy going over everything, we have a lot of people wishing Frank a happy birthday, and we have a lot of people who have been sharing, that have been here, that are sharing their experiences, and a lot of people who want to come. And I cannot stress enough how you all need to come down here and experience this. If you're on the West Coast and you just happen to be on the East Coast for a week, this is a trip you need to make. It's worth it. Plus, you get to go to Wawa.
There you go.
Plus, you get to go to Wawa while you're
Good
out.
lunch.
Ooh, and this piece.
Silver Warrior. We just did this piece with you guys.
Yep,
and it
Sideshow
turned out
Collectibles.
beautiful.
There's something here with what were we talking about with the polar
You want
bears?
me to tell the story?
You can tell the story.
This isn't one of the trivia questions.
No,
right?
no, it's not.
Okay.
I didn't put this in the
Okay.
trivia.
So most people, I ask people when they come in, what's missing? Frank did something in here important, but he did it on purpose.
Rob,
There's
can you get it?
nothing-
Can you
Do
figure
you
it
know
out?
what it is, Rob?
Can you figure out what's missing? Is there nothing holding those bears?
There you go.
There's
Most people don't notice that because Frank had the magic of getting you to assume they're there. You don't even question it. He didn't put reins because it would have been too distracting to that piece. As well as you put muzzles on those bears, and now they're puppy dogs, not the
Right.
fierce bears. If anybody ever watched the Narnia movies, The Prince and the
Yep.
Wardrobe, there's a scene in there with the Ice Princess, and that's exactly what it is. The polar bears, silver sled, just like that. And when I saw that scene, I'm like, Silver Warrior.
One of the pieces, one of the parts of this painting that I absolutely love is the light behind the clouds, sort of like
That was
sparkling.
the last thing he did. This painting was finished, and these little rays were not in it.
Right.
And my dad calls me over. He always asks me for advice, but I never gave him the right answer. he goes, it's done, but it's missing something. And I say, well, the rest of the mountains. He goes, no, that's not it. I said, maybe it's, no, that's not it. He said, I got it. And he just put these there. Now, the reason he did that, but after it's there, this spear becomes a pointer.
Right.
And your eyes and subconscious will honest, and it does happen, you follow this pointer off the canvas.
Right. To nowhere.
It'll take you away from what he wants you to stay. So this is like a pointer coming back. Stay back here.
Yeah, and that's something about this painting that, again, it's the small touches, the small ideas, and
Oh, I don't know if that came
right.
from thought, or you just knew how to do it.
Right.
Inborn. Let me make one quick more point about this.
Oh, one more point about
Death
Death Dealer.
Hold on. This here, the first Death Dealer in 1973. This is a reproduction. My sister Heidi owns it. Now, this painting was pretty well finished except for these three vultures. My dad goes, it's missing something. The original with the shield and the helmet and the action, like three-dimensional, they popped. There's nothing down here. He didn't want to take you away from looking at this. This was his centerpiece.
Centerpiece, right.
And he goes, it's still missing something. He goes, I got something. He put this vulture in. And he's like, it's not right. And I thought it took a big pair to put this vulture that close to the horse and get away with it to show that depth
Right.
of field. But now watch what happens. They're going to put these in. This is something your subconscious picks up as a triangle, a curve that you follow. Watch what happens in the painting when you take that out.
Yes, and now
It
it's
doesn't work.
right. It's awkward now.
It's like, what the hell's he doing down there? And this is because it's a flow of turning around. And that's what every painting has something like that in it. You just don't know it. I have to point it out, or he told me about things like that. And if it wasn't there, he wouldn't have put it there then. But he had to do that to make it work.
It's almost a subconscious thing for the person viewing it. Who wouldn't know that it took that much thought or just instinct to put them in there to have your eye follow the flow. Because, and for me, I come in here as just an observer, and I don't know that that's why he did it. My eyes just work with the painting. Same thing with.
Yeah, they have triangles. He paints the triangles and spheres that you don't see.
Right.
That's the painting was done on that before he started.
Right.
That's a new story for me. So now I got another one.
Now you got another one for that'll be $15.
There you go.
That'll be $15. So I wanted to let me just get out of the way so Rob can get this in here. I also wanted to end on this because this is Frank's favorite piece. Favorite piece. If you want to come in and talk about these two pieces.
I'll introduce it and then Frank, you can take it from there. So, Cat Girl. Cat Girl started out like this. She was done for the cover of Creepy in the late 60s. This piece does not exist anymore because it's under this piece. He painted over it 5 times, but Frank, you talk about her.
About 1966, my dad would usually get the painting because he got them done so quickly. After he had it done by the publisher and printed, he'd get it back a week later. And he'd have more time to look at it and say, I could have done this, I could have done this. So as soon as he got it home that day, sat around at the museum, and our friend Kenny Kelly was at the house, he's another artist, nephew of my mom, and his beautiful girlfriend was over from France, long dark hair.
Right.
And my dad said, hey, honey, do me a favor, go stand next to my painting, which was this one at the time. And she goes and stands next to him. Look at me for a second. She looks at him and goes, all right, thank you. Dips his paint right into the black and brunette. Just like this, just that fast.
He must have had photographic memory.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And now let me show you about those shapes I was telling you how you
Right.
Now this painting, it's a beautifully done painting, but there's just a lot going on and there's no real focal point.
Right.
It kind of goes here and there. Now you see the color on this branch, and this is one thing I'm seeing. The color continues through the whole painting again to follow that off the canvas. And you look at this one, same shape, the green's intense, and he stops it on the turn down to capture this side. There again, the circle goes around.
That's amazing.
But
because
you don't think about that when you look at it.
And
It
I
just
wonder,
happens.
Rob, I don't know if you can get this on an angle so you can see the reflection. Again, this is another thing in person that you may not be able to see because, by the way, this is one of the new prints we just announced that we're going to be carrying now. I don't know if this is shortly for, and there is a giveaway for it, which is going to be fun. But it almost has a 3-dimensional aspect because of the layers and layers and layers of paint that he put on that. So this, where someone might on camera only be seeing the black and the white and the green, like for us in person, it looks 3-dimensional.
And you can actually see there's a varnish shadowing of the cat that he took off on the top. You can see it's like a ghost cat up there.
This is
Yeah, there are other cats in there between this version and this one. He had a leopard facing this way, that way. There was a couple here, and he just took them out. He wanted her
to be the focal point.
Focal point.
And again, he went back to his dark-haired girls, which is his main thing.
And that's one of the few paintings he's garnished in its entirety. And the reason being, the varnish in the old days, 60s and 70s, was yellow and cracked.
Right.
So that's why he didn't like to use it much. Today it's totally different. Technology's changed that. But all that varnish brings out the depth of the forest. It brings it forward.
Yeah, because like I said, there's the extra dimension that you wouldn't have expected. So yeah, this is his favorite painting.
And he has seen 5 of those girls in real life, he said. I said, did you ever see one like this? He goes, I've seen about a handful in my life.
Right.
I said, how come you're still not chasing them?
Frank said that when he stood in front of a blank canvas ready to paint, the reason he could do them overnight was because he said that image was already on that canvas. All he did was trace over it, color over it. He said, because it was already there, he didn't have to think about it. Michelangelo said that when he stood in front of a block of marble, all he did was chip away at that marble to get to the image he saw inside. I believe that genius only comes around every few lifetimes, and we were lucky enough to have Frank in ours. It's incredible. He was a genius.
I could not agree more because, again, growing up, and I'm sure a lot of you out there growing up, even younger people that are just being introduced to things. And later we're going to be talking to some artists with ink tape litter. It's like Dave Wilkins and Ryan Rood and Greg Ruth.
I can't wait.
I can't wait to talk to them about it because this inspired a whole generation, and it's going to be inspiring. It's never going to stop. So.
Well, Frank and Ellie built this museum in the year 2000, right next to their home. The reason they did that was because they wanted the next generation to come to get to know who Frank is. They wanted the next George Lucas to come out of his art. They want the next generation to know who he was and be inspired to create something new.
If it wasn't for my dad's studio, this was put up as a thank you to the fans.
Right.
Because without the fans, the artist doesn't get recognized. And this is the only way they can thank you.
Yeah.
And my mom has this big influence on this as my dad, even more so.
Right. Yeah, you were talking about Ellie.
Ellie was his muse.
His muse.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, and that's the thing that you see often is like if you have that muse in your life, you know, no matter what, it can keep you inspired and keep you going.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Frank!
Frank!
Lazy, get painting again! Let's do another painting! And he did. He did. They were very competitive. Yeah? You think I'm lazy? I'll show you. And he'd whip out another painting. And yeah, she was
She
was
put
a
it in the
good
oven.
partner.
Sneak in that way. She
Yeah.
get under the skin just enough to get him to go to have to do it.
She knew him. She
Yeah.
knew him well. Yeah.
He knew it in
It's
the
a
back
good
of his,
partnership.
he knew in the back of his mind the deal, but I think he didn't have the spike to give her back. So he got the upper hand at the end of it.
Listen, in my opinion, that's what helps keeps it going. Everything's fresh because you're constantly like, hey, oh wait.
And we brought a lot of her personal things from her home. When we set this museum up, we tried to pull up her personal things, Ellie's. She liked flea marketing, antique shopping, but she had two things, African and Oriental. So we pulled a lot of her personal things and put them on the platform because this museum could not be Frank without Ellie supporting and holding him up. So,
Right. Which is literally what's happening
That's
here.
right.
All those pieces
yeah,
are
Ellie's personal
I
art
Accent.
thought they traveled the world, they didn't go anywhere.
never went anywhere. Brooklyn to here.
Somewhere in
shout out to Brooklyn, by the way. I never did find that bakery, by the way. So
Oh yeah, I forgot about
if
that.
anyone out there is watching and that works in the Brooklyn bakery, you know,
$15.
I'm running
I don't know
out.
how to cook it is, I'm not gonna explain that.
The black and white cookie?
No.
Oh,
We'll never get it. We've been trying to figure out this cookie for like 2 weeks already.
that should have been on the trivia.
That should have been on the trivia. We found the cookie. So we're gonna find this cookie. We're gonna have a whole trivia episode about this cookie. We're gonna find this cookie one day. But I wanted to thank you for bringing us here with you, for letting us celebrate Frank's birthday with you, and having this beautiful museum to his legacy, to his life, to his art. And thank you for talking with us about it.
And we want to thank you, Alex and Rob, for coming out and doing this, and Sideshow Collectibles, the whole team, Gracie, everybody on Sideshow Collectibles. I can't remember everybody's name, but
I want the whole list.
everybody, because it means a lot to Frank's legacy, and such a good job.
Yeah.
Professional, such a great job. So thank you all for doing this. We appreciate it.
Don't listen, everyone. Make sure you go to the short links that we've been showing you to see all this art that we do have for sale and all of the giveaways we have going on. But right now, me and Rob have to take out our wallets because Rob, turn around. I don't know if you noticed this when we came in because we're so busy focused on the art. We need to go to the gift shop because there is so much here. So we have Trivial Cahoots at I think 3 p.m. Pacific time. So keep an eye out for that. But for now, I'm going to go do a little shopping and. Rob's really excited because me and him love to spend money and egg each other on. So have a great time. Thank you for joining us. And as always, don't forget to let your geek side show. Happy birthday, Frank. Have a good one.